Eric Gustafson with Enabling Peace in Iraq Center. I'm so glad that you could join me for our holiday fundraiser. So I hope you have a cup of hot cider with you and we'll get into it. So we are raising money for a 501c3 nonprofit organization, one of a kind. It's the only organization that is dedicated and focused on the big challenges that the people of Iraq are facing. And really, this matters to all of us because it's about international security. It's about human rights. It's about living up to our values. And it's also about a tragic history where U.S. policy has not always been kind to the Iraqi people, that much harm has been done, and beginning to repair and address that. So let me share with you 10 things that you should know about Iraq, and also about EPIC's plans for the new year. So let's get into it. Okay, fun fact number one, we're gonna start with science. Hassan ibn Al-Haithm of Basra. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's also, the Latinized version of his name is Al-Hazen. And he's the guy that was the pioneer of the scientific method. So in terms of gifts that Iraq has given the world, I think that tops the list because the scientific method really can account for so much of the changes that have happened ever since. You know, all the technology that we benefit from, the scientific advances, the vaccine, I mean, that's about the scientific method. Ibn al-Haytham of Basra. Number two, we're going to shift to religion. The prophet Abraham came from the city of Ur, which is in southern Iraq. This is, of course, a famous area, Sumerian times, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Code of Hammurabi. All of that comes from this part of southern Iraq. But so too did the prophet Abraham, and that is the beginning of monotheism and the three major faiths. So during this holiday season, as we celebrate Christmas as Christians, or if you're Muslim, and all of the holidays in the faith tradition that you embrace, or even the Judeo tradition, that all comes from the city of Ur and prophet Abraham. Number three, the House of Wisdom, or Beit Al-Hikma. This is during the golden age of Islam. You had the Abbasid period of the golden age of Islam. And the House of Wisdom was about collecting all the knowledge across the world, whether it was in the Hellenistic period or the Roman period, or you know, literature in Sanskrit from India. It collected all of that and it transferred it on to future generations. Because remember, during that period of time in Europe, this was the Dark Ages. So by preserving and transferring that knowledge, it was a great gift to the world, and it fueled the Renaissance. And in addition to that, the Beit Al-Hikma, there were advances that were being made. There were contributions to that knowledge. A great example is, and I'm sure that there's some school kids out there that that love this, but algebra, the innovation of zero and things like that, that's all comes from that period and the contributions of the House of Wisdom. So that's number three. Okay, so we're going to shift gears. We're now going to talk about what's happening in Iraq right now. Three things that you should know. Number four, the Iraqi youth. We're talking about a very young country. At least 60% of the population is of the age of 25 years or younger. So it's a very young population. Each year, it's estimated that 500,000 young people are entering the labor force in Iraq. And this is part of why there is such a inspiring, energetic, and urgent social movement known as Tishreen. This is a movement, this is a protest movement where young people are demanding political and economic reforms. They understand that Iraq can potentially collapse, the government can collapse if change does not happen quickly. They also feel that they have no future unless there are reforms that allow, you know, the diversification of the economy, to move away from a dying fossil fuel industry, to create more job opportunities for young people, for a more vibrant private sector, not to depend on everything for the public sector that's no longer sustainable. And so they're demanding political change, and they're demanding an end to the corruption of the political class, the political establishment in Iraq, which is so endemic and is robbing the people. So the fourth thing you need to know is that there is this social movement driven by youth that's creating change in Iraq. Number 5, climate change in Iraq. This is really important to understand. Temperatures are rising around the world. They're rising faster in Iraq. The highest temperature recorded ever was recorded in Mesan province, which is in southern Iraq in the marsh areas. It's a very serious problem, and it's a driver of conflict because it's shrinking the agricultural belt in Iraq. So you have farmers that are losing their livelihoods. And arguably, and there's been much literature on this, climate change was a factor, one of the drivers of the emergence of ISIS. So climate change is a huge problem. And again, believe it or not, and this is a key fact, there are young people, activists, who are tackling that problem in Iraq right now. You hear about, Greta Thunberg, you hear about all of these different campaigners about addressing climate change. Well, believe it or not, there are these amazing activists in Iraq, like Save the Tigris River is a great organization. There's Iraq Water Keepers and Nabil al-Musa. So there's opportunities to also address climate change in Iraq. So that's number 5. Number 6. So I want to kind of preface number 6 with this fun fact about the recent elections in Iraq. What was the number 1 issue among Iraqi voters? Corruption. They want to see an end to it. The current Biden administration has identified corruption as a national security priority, a priority for international security. So that's one thing to know. So now, understanding that and understanding that corruption was a key factor, with the recent elections that just took place on October 10th in Iraq, and corruption being the number 1 concern, even though there was a record low voter turnout, the outcome of that election is truly astonishing. So with a record, keep in mind, we're talking about maybe 35% or so of eligible voters turning out to vote. Even though it was only 35% of those turning out to vote, in the October 10th parliamentary elections, the country's political establishment saw a steep decline in support. They collectively lost more than 2.5 million votes and nearly 60 parliamentary seats compared to the previous elections in 2018. At the same time, pro-reform Tishreen and independent candidates collectively won nearly 2 million votes and more than 45 seats in parliament. So talking about an agent of change, we now are seeing a movement that is organizing and fielding candidates and winning seats in parliament. This is a very positive development in Iraq. So I want to go on to number 7. So now I'm shifting to EPIC's plans for the new year. The first plan is that we are dedicated to peace and recovery. The aftermath of ISIS is still felt and is very real in places like the city of Mosul and in Nineveh. And this year we did a project in Sinjar. So looking to the new year, we are planning to do the same kind of project we did in Sinjar, but to replicate it and do it, scale up and do it in other areas of Iraq. And what it is was working with young people, community activists, on creating a change strategy and also creating a digital peace-building strategy so that they were taking a project and talking about it and helping to gain support and doing advocacy around those issues. And we had great success with it, and we want to be able to do it in other places like Hamdaniya and possibly Kirkuk. So we're currently working with the IOM and other agencies to be able to carry that work out in 2022. Number 8, we are focusing on supporting young Iraqis and this movement, the social movement, to bring about reforms for good governance and human rights. Now, this is really important. Since the big protests in October 2019, dozens of activists have been assassinated, have been killed. And even when the government knows who did it, and there's even clear evidence of the individual who's responsible for carrying out the assassinations, which of course often involves these Iran-backed militias, despite that, nobody's in jail. So there's an atmosphere of impunity, and that has to end. So we are going to be focusing specifically on good governance and human rights, and we also have plans to work on corruption. We have some exciting plans involved, that includes focusing on working with these new independent candidates and the Tishreen candidates that have seats in parliament, working with those parties to help them, give them the tools they need to be able to fight corruption. Number 9, we are going to be fighting climate change and addressing the human costs of climate change in Iraq. And we'll be working again directly with these amazing activists that I talked about earlier. So I want to go on to the final, this number 10 thing that you should know is that Epic is fundraising. We are trying to raise $30,000 between now and the end of the year so that your donations will provide all of the resources that we need to be able to carry out this work. This is about tackling the big challenges in Iraq and challenges that can help bring about peace, respect for human rights. Just imagine Iraq really being a driver of positive change in the Middle East, and it is truly possible. And I feel that sincerely, having traveled to Iraq most recently in June, and connecting with civil society activists, civil society organizations, learning about the good work that they're doing, and knowing that if we can provide them with more resources, then we will see more change happen in Iraq, positive change. So right now, every single donation counts. And I want to explain this a little bit. It's not just about us reaching $30,000, which will be matched dollar for dollar, thanks to a longtime contributor to Epic, who's a dear friend of mine. His foundation will be providing $25,000 of the match. And then thanks to our board members, the remaining $5,000 of the match will be coming through our board. So that's a $30,000 match. So if we raise $30,000, that becomes $60,000 as we cross into the new year. But the other reason this is really important is because we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're tax exempt. Your donations are tax deductible. But for that to happen, we have to continue to have a lot of support coming from individual donors. So it's not only about the amount we raise, it's about the number of donors that we have. So if you are only able to contribute $10, guess what? That $10 is precious, and your individual contribution is precious to us, and it really helps strengthen us as an organization, as a nonprofit. So here's the update. So as of now, we have raised, oh, it's going to flip it. I'm sorry. I was going to be all high tech and it's going to flip it. But we have, even though it's flipped, you can see we're 34% of the way towards our goal. We've raised over $10,000 of that $30,000 goal. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is please, if you're on Facebook, you can immediately look on my Facebook page or look around. You'll see that we have an active fundraiser, a year-end fundraiser for Enabling Peace. So please take a look, make a donation. Every donation through through Facebook, there are no fees, which is one of the nice things about Facebook. There's a lot to complain about, but that's one nice thing. So make a donation, share that donation with your friends so that you help generate more donations from your own network. And then the other way you can donate is go to enablingpeace.org. If you go to enablingpeace.org, you can donate, and you can also join the campaign and follow the campaign. You'll see in real time the donations that are coming in and see how, as we work toward reaching our goal. So that's all I've got. Season's greetings. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you'll join us in helping to raise awareness and raise donations and support for peace in Iraq, peace in the new year. Thank you so much. Shukran jazilan. Zor zor spas. Bye.